I've always known there's something. I quickly became aware of this God who knew me and who wanted a relationship with me.
A lot of the love in this world is conditional, but Jesus is different. He loves you because that's just who Jesus is. He's replaced my anxiety with his unconditional love for me.
Home to me is about family. Family is all about comfort and supporting one another.
No matter what I've done or said, he welcomes us into his family with open arms.
Thank you so much for giving up a bit of your evening tonight, and we hope to finish in good time so you can get to Players or wherever else is you're going tonight. And I'm reliably informed that that's apparently a really great place to go on a Wednesday night, but maybe not. Fantastic. Do come in, do come in, do come in. Fantastic. I want to speak tonight about how to find your heart. I wonder what's going on in your heart right now, whether you feel at peace about your life or a little bit fearful about the future, whether you feel quite confident about how things are going for you or you feel a little bit insecure, whether you feel, quite secure, your heart feels quite hard, or whether it feels a little bit fragile. One of the things that has a huge impact on how we feel is a sense, whether we acknowledge it or not, is that there's standards in life that we're trying to meet. Either standards that we set for ourselves or standards that other people set for us, our parents or our friends or our boyfriend or our girlfriend. There are standards we're trying to meet. Sometimes it's really obvious. You might have a standard in your mind, like if I can get 69.6, then that's a standard I want to meet with my degree. Or it might be you want to get 59.6 or 49.6. Other times, though, it's harder to see. There are standards that other people have that we set for ourselves, standards that just are in our college. Depending on what college you're at, whether you're from Hatfield, you might have one set of standards. And, sorry, I wasn't there. And very quick reaction to that. And or if you're not from Hatfield, you might have another set of standards. And but we can have standards, and they're around their subtlety. And sometimes, if we feel like we're not making the standard, we can appear very confident on the outside, and look like we're nailing it, like we're projecting supreme self-confidence. But deep down, we can feel very insecure. When I started working as a criminal defense barrister, I was only 22, and I looked about 16. And one of my first cases was a Crown Court trial. So you have to wear a silly wig, a silly gown, and you go off to trial. And I was a little bit nervous. I was self-conscious about how young I looked. And the guy I was representing was a guy who was just 15 years old. He was alleged to have stabbed someone on a bus. And because he was so young, there was an option available for the court where the court could decide that everyone would take off their wigs and their gowns to make the courtroom less intimidating for this 15-year-old who'd stabbed someone, or alleged to have stabbed someone, and so make it much less intimidating for him. But the difficulty was you never quite knew what the judges were going to do, because some judges were like, oh yeah, that's a really nice thing to do. Let's make the court really accessible and make sure this defendant feels really at home. And some judges hated it. They were like, no, he shouldn't feel at home. He should feel really intimidated by all the wigs and gowns. So you never knew what was going to happen. So I kind of turned up for this case. It was just about to start, and I suddenly thought, should I have my wig on or my wig off? And I thought, I don't know. And it's my first case. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm thinking, wig on, wig off, 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 wig on. What do I do? Don't know. Don't want to get it wrong. Don't want to get told off by the judge. And I thought, it's easier to take a wig off than it is to put a wig on. So I'll put my wig on. But I was still a bit nervous about it. And while I was deciding this, unbeknownst to me, the defendant walked in and sat behind me wearing a baseball cap. And he was just sitting in the back in the dock. And I was kind of in between him and the judge. And I was thinking, wig on, wig off, wig on, wig off. And then it's like they say, all rise. And you kind of have to stand up. And the judge walks in, and he got halfway across. He looked right at me and he said, young man, take that hat off. And I said, I'm so sorry, like this. And I took my wig off and put it down. And he said, Mr. Foster, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the defendant. And I was like, oh, like this. And the whole courtroom kind of burst out laughing, and even the defendant was laughing, and that's not how you want to start your legal career. But it was quite funny because I had the wig and the gown. I had done a law degree. I'd done my bar school, my training. I'd been trained in advocacy by some of the best barristers in the UK. I was completely equipped to do what I needed to be doing. And In everyone else's eyes, of course, I was meeting the standard that was required, but in my own eyes, I felt completely insecure. I was not sure that I was supposed to be there. And when you're feeling like that, you can feel like dissociated. You can feel like this isn't quite working out, and I'm not sure I'm meeting the mark. And the different standards we face in life are some ways a reflection of the cosmic standard in the universe. This sense, although we might pretend it's not there, this sense, are we really meeting the mark? Are we really living up to scratch? Are we going to be good enough? Are we going to be successful enough? Are we going to be have the right friendship network? Are we going to meet the right partner? Are we going to be able to justify ourselves? Are we going to be able to make a name for ourselves? Are we going to be able to prove ourselves? And there's two responses to that kind of uncertainty that we sometimes feel. And one is to kind of puff ourselves up, tell ourselves we're nailing it, we're smashing it, it's brilliant, we're hitting home runs and fine, yeah, we're great. And we kind of, our insecurity then drives and feeds our pride, and we become a little bit proud. That's one response. The other response is you feel like you keep missing the mark, and you go the other way. Your insecurity pushes you down a bit, you become a bit despondent, you become more despondent, and you become more and more insecure. But what if there's a third option? What if there's a way to hit the standard that we sense is there in such a way that it doesn't make us proud, but it actually makes us more humble? So your successes don't seduce you and make you silly and foolish, and your failures don't destroy you, but they actually refine you. And that's what we're going to look at tonight. And Jesus tells this story. And this is on page 58 of the little kind of green and grey books, which are kind of scattered liberally around the room like confetti. And just going to read this together. This is from one of the eyewitness accounts of Jesus' life. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and I give 1/10 of all I get. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Jesus tells this story to those trusting in their own righteousness, to those who are confident in their own righteousness, to those who are saying, I don't need anything else. I'm good enough in and of myself. I'm fine. I'm right with God. I'm trusting in myself. I can make the standard on my own. I don't have any need for help from God, any need of rescuer, any need of what they were talking about just now on the sofas. I'm okay. I'm entirely self-sufficient. And sometimes that's quite an attractive stance. I quite like being self-sufficient. I don't like relying on other people. I don't like having to lean on other people for support. I like the idea that I can do things by myself. It takes quite a lot for me to ask for help. And when we're feeling like that, we can do quite a good job of presenting ourselves in a certain way. But the truth is, we're kidding ourselves. We find it impossible to live up to even our own standards, let alone God's. So imagine you were king or queen of the world for a week, and one of the things you had to decide was what rules people were going to live by. So you just get to decide completely arbitrarily what rules people live by. So you just get to impose your preferences on everyone else. So you get to decide everyone has to do the things they think are important and not do the things that you don't think are important. You just get to decide it. So you get to decide everything. How people should live, how they should speak, how they should act, what jobs they should do. And you just get to decide all the rules. I just wonder, as you establish your own moral code, according entirely to your own principles and entirely your own preferences, if someone followed you around and listened to everything you said and watched everything you did, how long do you think it would take you to break your own moral code? Like an hour? A day? A week? A month? I mean, think about just like speaking about others. How should we speak about others? I was out a few months ago, and I got a text from a friend, and I couldn't make sense of the text. And I was like looking at this text thinking, what on earth? Is he drunk? Why is he sending this random text? And then I realized what had happened. He'd been out at a party, my friend, okay, and he had enabled Siri on his iPhone, okay, but not just that, because that's brave enough, but this is why he's so brave. He had enabled voice-activated texting, okay, on his iPhone. So he was at a party, he bumped into some other people that knew me, and they started talking about me. And he said my name and started saying something about me, and his iPhone went, Stephen, opened up a message and started dictating in the message everything he said about me. So I'm at home, and I'm like getting this message which details what my friend has just said about me in a conversation with two other people. And I was like looking and saying, what is this? And then I suddenly realized what happened. I was like, oh, like this. I mean, it was extraordinary. I mean, can you imagine that? And I was like, look, and actually what he said wasn't too unkind. It was quite funny, actually. It made me laugh. I haven't told him yet that, that he did it. I keep meaning to text him, but then I feel guilty that he's going to have a complete panic attack when he realizes what he's done. So I haven't texted him for like 2 months. At some stage, I have to text him 3 times really quickly so he doesn't freak out. But I was like, can you imagine that? I mean, imagine if every time you spoke about another person behind their back or when they weren't there, your iPhone sent them a text saying everything you just said. Would that change the way you spoke about people? Maybe, maybe not. Put your hands up if it would. Put your hands up if you wouldn't. You just go for the giggles. Yeah, that's brave. You know, that's brave. Put your hands up if you don't like putting your hands up. Yeah, one. Okay, yeah. And but then the funny thing is, I was thinking, this is so ridiculous. You know, look at him. He's like talking behind my back. Da, 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 da. You know, that will teach him. And then a few weeks later, I was doing some filming, and it's quite difficult. And it was, you know, a long 3 hours of filming. And by the end of it, I was getting a bit tired. And the crew kept asking me to do additional things and additional things and additional things and additional things. I was like, it's just so much filming. And they asked me to do things I didn't feel comfortable doing, asked me to do things we hadn't agreed. And after a while, I said, look, can I just stop, please? I'm just not comfortable doing this anymore. And they're like, okay, we'll break for lunch. So I went into like the little kind of dressing room, and one of my colleagues was there, and he was just helping me out. And I went in and I said to him, Aidan, you know, you need to know that sometimes people will push you to do things you don't want to do. But you never have to do them. You've always got your no. I was trying to coach him as I go. So I was saying, like, your no is a really powerful thing. So if people push you, they can push you quite hard. It's never too late to say no. And if someone pushes you to do something you're not comfortable with, like they just asked me to do this thing, I'm just not comfortable with it. I don't want to do it. Why should I do it? And at that moment, the door knocked, and the sound guy came and he said, I'm so sorry, you're still mic'd. And I was like, he's like, it's just booming out over the studio. Can we just take your mic off? And I was like, no. Like this. So I was like, of course, yeah, thanks so much. Like this. And then he undid my mic, took it off, went out. And then I was like, Aidan, what did I say? And he said, well, you said this, and you said this, and you said this, and you said this. And I said, did I say anything unkind? He said, maybe not unkind. You were very honest, like this. And I was like, so it's like, even myself. 1 week, I'm getting a text message from Siri. I'm like, how can he speak about behind my back? The next week, I'm doing exactly the same thing. We find it hard enough to live up to our own standards, let alone God's. We kid ourselves, and we convince ourselves we're doing all right, and we kind of put things in place, nice struts that make us feel better about our lives, our success, our friendship network, our achievements, persuade ourselves we don't really need God. But that can make us quite proud. And pride is just the focus on self, and the belief that we don't need God. And pride is so subtle. Someone once called it the carbon monoxide of sin because it kills character silently. When I first started working as a barrister, my environment started to shape me. So, like, I had an idea, a figure in mind of how much I wanted to earn in my first year at work. And I thought I'd be doing really well if I earned that much. My first year, I earned 5 times that much. I worked in this amazing Georgian building, and we had a butler, and that was amazing. People from Hatfield will know what that's like. And that's the last one, I promise. Just don't. I don't know why. I'm just playing along. And you know, you kind of all these things. I started to put trust in myself. And plus, it was great because you go to parties and people will be fascinated by the job you do. Like, it's fun being a criminal barrister. And you get to represent some really interesting people. And people are interested in them. I mean, people who, run international people who are accused of running international drug cartels, they're like really interesting people, fun people to spend time with. And it was even better if they knew some of my colleagues, because the people I worked with, they were some of the best people in the country doing what they did. So they'd be like, oh, you work with them? They're brilliant. You must be brilliant. And I'd be like, no. And inside I'd be thinking, yes! And but this pride started to get into me. it was almost as if I'd use my achievements to make me think I was meeting the standard and to convince myself I didn't need God in my life. And my heart became quite hard. And in this passage, we've got the Pharisee. And the Pharisees, they were well-trained, well-educated, well-respected. They had a lot of status. And he stands by himself when he comes in to pray in the temple. And he prays, God, I thank you I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. So it's really interesting. He stands on his own, apart from everyone else. He's so independent, he doesn't even want to be near anyone else. And then he says thank you to God. But I don't know about you. When you say thank you to someone, you normally say something that they've done. So I could say, thank you for making a cup of tea, and that would be like a normal thing. Or thank you for being kind to me. Or I could say, thank you for the way those interviews went. And just, you're thanking people for what they've done. This is so strange. He says thank you to God, and then he lists all the things he's done. It looks like a prayer, it's framed as a prayer, but actually it's just a complete list of all the reasons he thinks he's all right without God. Why he doesn't need God's help. Look, I fast twice a week, I give a tenth I've got, I'm not like this person, I'm not like that person, I don't rob, I'm not an adulterer, da-da-da-da-da-da. So he obviously thinks he's owed God's good opinion. And Jesus says he left not justified before God. He left unjustified and not right with God. And I just want to be really frank with you. Do I have your permission just to speak really frankly for like 2 minutes? Is that okay? Just put your hand up if you're okay with that. Put your hand up if you don't want me to speak frankly. You are good. I'm enjoying that. That's good value. And not good as in you might be good, you might not. I'm just saying it's really helpful for me, so I appreciate it. And I just want to be. So I'm just going to be frank just for a moment, okay? I don't know any of you, and you look great to me. And but here's the thing. I want you to have a great life. I want you to have a great life. And you might think the way I used to think, which is, I'm pretty sure I can make it on my own. I'm pretty sure I don't need this. For weak people, for those who had a difficult time emotionally, for those, who struggle a bit, I can understand they did a crutch. But I'm not like that. I'm okay on my own. That's how I felt. But I just want to say, please don't miss out. Don't persuade yourself you don't need a rescuer when in fact you do. You need to know you need a rescuer. Just don't think on the final day it's going to work to kind of pitch up to God and to say, oh, look at all the things I've done. Look at how great I am. Look at how I played that sport. Look at how I nailed that job. Look at all the money I made. Look at the size of my house. Look at my friendship network. Thank you. It's not going to work. That's not going to cut it. But there's another person in this story, and that's the tax collector. And they were looked down on, they were despised. And what's fascinating about this guy is he can't even come in close. He kind of stands at a distance, and he watches the service take place. He can't even look up at heaven. He just beats his chest and says, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. It's really interesting, the contrast between the two. Like one of them stands there and says, God, I thank you, I'm amazing. And the other stands there and kind of just, he can't even look up. He just said, God, I know I've messed up. I know my life's a mess. I know I've hurt some people. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. It's so interesting because often we compare ourselves in that way. Don't know if you've ever experienced this. Like when we're trying to work out how we're doing, we kid ourselves, I'm okay according to my standards. But what we're actually doing is often like we're thinking, I know at least one mate who's in a worse place than me. Anyone got a mate like that? Like, when you're feeling like my life is really bad, I think, at least I'm not that guy. Like, he's that guy, he does stuff I would never dream to do. Like, even though things are going really badly, it's going worse for him, and I feel okay, yeah? So I've got a brother like that. So we both, my little brother Paul, so we both grew up in quite a rough area, and lots of people in our area got involved in the criminal justice system, not by choice, like they were arrested, and so my way of engaging with that was I went and studied law, and then I went to train to be a barrister, and then I started working as a criminal defense barrister, and as part of my job, I'd represent people accused of crimes, and I'd go and spend time in prison with people accused of crimes, and so I actually ended up quite a lot of my day, I'd spend time with people who were either criminals or on the fringes of criminality. My brother's always been much more direct and efficient than me. He went straight from school to spending time with criminals and people who are on the fringes of criminality. That's just like, he's just much better at things than me. So I would always think like I'd be there in this amazing office with my butler, about to go and do cases. And I'd get these phone calls from my brother. And I still remember one, he phoned up. It was strange for Paul to phone me before midday and 9 o'clock in the morning. And so I picked up the phone and go, Paul, you're right. He's like, yeah, I've got great news. And I was like, what is it? What is it, Paul? Have you got a job? Have you, have you found a girlfriend? Have you, what's the thing? And he said, I've got great news. I couldn't wait to tell you. I said, what's happening? He said, we're out last night. I got arrested. I got interviewed for 3 hours and I didn't get charged. I mean, what do you say? Paul, I'm so happy for you. That's wonderful news. Have you told mum and dad yet? They'll be thrilled. It's so exciting. No, I mean, what do you say? And so it's very easy for me to look at my little brother and say, he's in a difficult place, but I'm not. I'm doing all right. I can trust on my own. I'm doing okay on my own. I'm much better than him. But actually, I was kidding myself. And in some ways, he was in a much better place than me because Paul was in no doubt that he needed help. He was in no doubt that he needed a rescuer, whereas I was often kidding myself. So the tax collector comes in, and he won't even look up at heaven. He beats his chest, and he says, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. True humility is not saying you're rubbish at things you're great at. That's not humility. True humility is 20/20 vision about how things really are. 20/20 vision about what you're good at, what you're not so good at. 20/20 vision about who you are and who you're not. 20/20 vision about how you stand before God, knowing that if you don't have God's help, then you're stuck. And you might feel far off. You might have done things you regret. You might, even coming here tonight, you might feel a little bit like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. One of my colleagues once, he went to church. I'll never forget him saying it. He went to church, and I said to him on the Monday when we were just chatting, I said, how did it go? Because he said, wow, that's a lot. This isn't like a biblical thing, don't worry. It's not like, I hope it's not anyway. He went to church on the Sunday, and then I said to him, how did you find it? He said, I found it really hard. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it's nice, the music, sitting there. But he said, to be honest, I just sat there the whole time. And I just thought, if people really knew me and the life I lived and the things I do, they wouldn't want to know me. They've all got their nice, pretty lives. My life's a bit more complicated than that. And the whole time he was thinking, I'm not going to fit in here. I'd be kicked out if they knew. And if you even feel a little bit of that tonight, a tiny bit of it, like all these kind of Christians with their kind of niceness and da-da-da-da-da, it's not my bag. If you even feel a little bit of that, I tell you, you are much closer than you think. Because if you realize on a small sense, there's something separating you from God, then you've got a sense that you need a rescuer, and you're much closer than you think. And this guy beats his chest. He beats his heart. He knows he needs forgiveness. And he says, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. And I tell you, this is not the usual word for mercy. All through the New Testament, the word that's used for mercy is ilios. He doesn't use that word. He uses an interesting word, hilastatoi moi. Have mercy on me, hilastatoi moi. And what that word means, hilastatoi, the root means, may there be a propitiation for me. May there be a particular sacrifice for me that I can claim on my behalf. May there be a sacrifice of atonement, something that would be sacrificed for me to bring me back to God, to enable forgiveness of sins so I might be able to return to God again. And what would happen in the temple in those days is you'd come into the temple, a sacrifice, an actual sacrifice would be given. And the priest would walk through the curtain and pray on behalf of the nation as the sacrifice was happening. And everyone else would offer up their prayer. And in that moment, he is beating his chest and looking at the sacrifice that is happening and saying, may that sacrifice be for me. Hilastatoi moi, have mercy on me, a sinner. Because I can't do it on my own. I can't get there on my own. It has to come from another place. May that price that's been paid be for me. It's not a general prayer for mercy, like God be kind to me. It's a specific request for forgiveness. And we need forgiveness. Sometimes we talk about forgiveness like it's the easiest thing in the world. But if you've ever been wronged in your life, if you've ever really suffered, if someone's treated you badly, if you've ever been, slandered or victimized or hassled, you know there's a cost to forgiveness. It costs you something. It might not cost the perpetrator, but it costs either the victim or it costs the person who's looking out for it. We talk about forgiveness like it's the easiest thing in the world, but there is a cost to it. And we need to be made right with God. We can't do that on our own. And what happened in the temple foreshadowed what Jesus did on the cross. He was the lamb who was slain for the sins of the world. Jesus did come. He did die on the cross. God has given himself for you. You can't save yourself. It says in 1 Peter 3, Christ suffered for sin, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. And because of Jesus, you don't have to stand far off. You can come close. You can be confident, not in your own righteousness, but in his righteousness, the one who lived the perfect life and died on a cross for you to take the penalty we deserve, to restore relationship with God. And you can say tonight, may that sacrifice be for me. And that frees you from trying to spend your life building your empire, building your ego, inflating your life. And enables you to focus on the reason you're really made, your true purpose. Doesn't mean you're not going to do things that are really significant. Doesn't mean you're not going to make a name for yourself. But the motive is different. You're not bearing all the weight of your hopes and identity and expectations on something that you construct. Because the most important verdict in the universe has been given in your favor. And that's the foundation on which you can build. It kind of frees you up to make a real impact with your life. Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. Now, how do we respond to that? Well, you might be here and you might be like, well, if it wasn't raining, I'd have left by now. It's been all right. Thanks so much, but it's not for me. I'm good. I'll try and build it myself. Thanks so much. And, that's absolutely fine if you feel that way. Thank you for coming. Do feel free to come back again. And if you feel like you've wasted a bit of your time, I'm very sorry. There's probably more wine, and we'll give some so you can take it away. Do a bit more pre-drinking before players or wherever you're going. There's another place I can't remember with a strange name. Clues? Yeah, okay, yeah. Wow, some people don't go there. Okay, that one. So if you might be like, well, I'm interested at least. I'm interested. I'm not sure where the interest is going to end up, but I am interested. And I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I want to take the next step in exploring it. And if that's you, I just encourage you, grab another glass of wine, chat to the person who brought you, maybe pick up this thing, and tomorrow, when you wake up, have a little read and see what you think of the kind of documentary evidence about who Jesus is and what he said. Read it and think, who is this guy? Do I want to know him? Do I want to ask him to be my friend, as we heard? But it might be that there's someone here tonight and you'll say, no, actually, I'm that guy. Maybe you've been trusting in your own righteousness and you're like, no, now I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe you've been trying to make the standard on your own. You're like, I can't do it anymore. And actually, I do know that's made me quite weary. Maybe you outwardly have presented like super cool, you get great network, everything's nailing it. You're a big name on campus, it's good. And now you're like, actually, what if that's not going to be enough? Actually, deep down, there's an insecurity there that's driven you to do those things. And it hasn't felt quite as satisfying as you thought. And this is a moment for you, a key moment for you to say, I want that sacrifice to be for me. Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. And if that's you, let's just pray now. It might just be this one person, but it'll be an important moment for them. So why don't we just if you're happy, just bow your heads and just close your eyes. And I'm just going to pray a prayer. Jesus said, I just feel this might be significant for someone tonight. So just before I pray, I'm just going to say this. Jesus said, those who try to save their lives will lose them. But those who lose their lives for me will never lose them. Just a sense that there's someone here, and you're going to look back on this evening as one of the significant moments of your life, actually, that something shifted. And I tell you, I've regretted lots of things in my life, but I've never regretted the moment I placed my trust in Jesus. So if that's where you're at, let's pray this prayer together in the quietness of your heart. Lord Jesus, thank you that you came for me. Thank you that you died for me. Thank you that you love me. Thank you that I can look at you and place my trust in you and ask for your mercy, claim your sacrifice as my own tonight and put my trust in it. And I'm sorry for the things I've got wrong. I'm sorry for my failures, for my sin, my shame, and the mistakes I've made. And thank you that because of what you have done, that sacrifice of atonement on the cross, I can know forgiveness and freedom. And I can approach God tonight as his much-loved child. And please, would you come into my life by your Spirit and lead me on into the life you have for me, the purpose you created me for. Amen.